Beyond Order by Jordan Peterson. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, then make sure to smash that like button. I did a review of this guy's legendary book, 12 Rules for Life, that I wouldn't really recommend watching because I don't know what exactly was going on in my head at the time. I don't know. I just found the book a little too preachy and disorganized for my taste. I found it a little bit more religious than I was hoping to. And I feel like in retrospect, I let those findings of preachiness or disorganization kind of cloud my judgment. And I'll admit that this judgment clouding or whatever it is, it happens from time to time in reviews. 12 Rules for Life, though, is the best example I could probably give you. Or actually, I think 12 Rules for Life might be the second best. The best I could give you, or maybe the worst I could give you, is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. When I get so much backlash for a review, typically it means there's something I'm really overlooking. And that's the most backlash I've ever gotten on any review. And I don't blame these people. The more people I spoke to about 12 Rules for Life after reviewing that book, the more it made sense to me that there were some things I was probably very much overlooking what he was trying to achieve with 12 Rules. He lays out like all these stories across history and different belief systems and ideologies and says there's something deeper that all of these stories have in common, and there are 12 of these things, and here's what they are. If this is all the case, which I guess it is, there had to be some sort of a certain accessibility that I also was missing to him, or his writing style, or just something. Maybe I'm just being naive here. Okay, let's say I'm being naive. The thing is, most books that sell over 5 million copies in 2 or 3 years, if we don't like those books, in my experience, maybe there's something we don't understand about those books. I'm excited to give this dude another chance. I can't say he doesn't deserve it, but how does this compare to 12 Rules for Life? Beyond Order? How does that compare? In the author's words, like 12 Rules for Life, this book provides an explication of rules drawn from a longer list of 42 published and popularized on the Q&A site Quora. But unlike 12 Rules, Beyond Order explores as its overarching theme how the dangers of security and control might be profitably avoided. We have to keep one foot in order while stretching the other one tentatively beyond. Someone's got to say this too, by the way. Beyond Order is such a badass name for a book. Looking at these rules, I wasn't really surprised with how specific or unique or well written they are, especially Rule 1, Rule 6, and Rule 8, which I'm going to go over every rule, what I like about them, what I learned, what surprised me. And if I disagree or anything like that, I will speak on it. Other than that, let's get into it. Rule 1 is do not denigrate, carelessly denigrate, that is, social institutions for creative achievement. This rule describes the relationship between stable, predictable social structures and individual psychological health. This guy uses a lot of big words. I'll just say that. And how to retain their vitality, these social structures have to be they have to be updated by people. Creative people. There's a refreshing touch that he added to these rules with stories of his family and his clients to demonstrate them and their tenets. In the one section, the utility of the fool, which you wouldn't expect a fool to have utility. It's kind of strange. The other said it's better to assume ignorance and invite learning than to assume sufficient knowledge and risk the consequential blindness. It's much better to make friends with what you don't know than what you do know, because there is an infinite amount of what you don't know and there is a very finite stock of what you do know. We're all very stupid. I hate to say it, but we're all very stupid. When you look at it that way, it's like, bro, you don't even know anything. I don't either, though, so it's all good, but we can still learn. I think his main idea with this rule is that, change, upscale movement in an organization or hierarchy, it's not doable without agreement, without an acknowledgement that there is a way that things are already being done. And what that is. The true hero and fully developed personality, they do what others do. They follow the rules. They also know that it is necessary to use judgment, vision, and conscience to tell what's right when the rules suggest otherwise. Rule 2 is imagine who you could be and aim single-mindedly at that. This rule analyzes the centuries-old alchemical image, relying on several ancient and modern stories to illuminate the nature and development of the integrated human personality. Again, a lot of big words. The way that this guy writes, it's not the easiest thing to stomach. A lot of this book can be summed up with the 3 words: stories, stories, lessons. There are so many stories, and the impressive thing to me about them is the sheer variety of areas that they stem from. On one level, someone could say, yeah, this guy's he's just all over the place. But on another, it's clear that he really is making an effort, at least, to make sense of what most people don't. Like in this rule, there was this one story from like very, very far back, from like ancient Mesopotamian history. I found that one a little bit hard to follow. Meanwhile, he'll, like, right around the corner, he'll make an example out of literally anything, or anyone. From, like I said, Iron Man, to a long-term client of his, to the relationship between Horus and Osiris, to the relationship between Peter Pan and Captain Hook. In the next chapter, Rule 3 is, and this is really cool, do not hide unwanted things in the fog. Ooh, scary, the fog. This rule warns of the dangers of avoiding the information vital to the continuation and rejuvenation of the psyche, signaled by the emergence of negative emotions like pain, anxiety, and fear. This one really said to me, like, do not let things go unsaid. If you don't like something that happens every day, be it big or small, don't let it keep happening. Don't be afraid to tell them that you are not happy with the way your lemonade is made. Don't let it go unnoticed. Something I couldn't get behind with 12 rules was that with many rules, it seemed like he would go very far into topics that didn't really have that much to do with the rules. Or maybe they did, but it just wasn't that clear how. I'm happy to state that for the most part, I really did not see this in Beyond Order. Rule 4 is notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. This rule argues that the meaning that sustains people through difficult times is something you can't really find it much in happiness, but you can find it in the voluntary reaction of mature responsibility for yourself and others. When someone else decides not to take responsibility for what is in my eye? Ew. Ugh. When someone else decides not to take responsibility for something, that's where there's an opportunity for you to take initiative and move upstream where others are not. And I really enjoyed this rule mainly because of its professional implications. I work in auto sales, and not really anyone has time to take pictures of at least the used vehicles. Once they get through the shop, people call in and they're like, hey, the truck is on your site, but there are no pictures, and it looks like it's white, but it says that it's cayenne pepper red tin coat. Is that what it's called? Cayenne pepper tin coat? The GMC Sierra? I don't remember which color. There are no pictures, and this bothers people, and it would bother me if I were asking about a car or a truck. The manager shouldn't have to do it. The one kid who was doing it, he only interns during the summer. So now I'm doing it, but my point is that it's a mere necessity. It's gotta be done. Someone's gotta do it. Maybe it's not the most exciting thing to accomplish, since it's not exactly a straight up revenue generator. I don't know if that makes sense, but Rule 5 is do not do what you hate. This rule uses a single example drawn from clinical psychology to illustrate the necessity of attending to the dictates of conscience. As the author says, the good that people do, maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it manifests in a bigger way in the world than most people probably think. We're each more responsible for the state of the world than we probably think, or would feel comfortable thinking. When I heard this, I figured this rule and the previous one, they both kind of pertain to each other. Rule 6, abandon ideology. That's right. Abandon ideology. Spooky. Abandon. It's been abandoned. This rule describes the dangers surrounding the complex cause of individual and social problems with single variables like sex or class or power. I didn't find this that hard to understand, this rule, but it's kind of hard to explain. These are also just topics like sex and class and power. They're topics that this guy has an uncanny ability to just articulate the implications of. Does that make sense? Something about rules like this one another one, like I think it was rule 1 or 3, I don't remember, maybe both. It reminded me of Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, which highlighted in maybe exhausting details the dangers of looking at just one side of the coin. I also can't help but think that it's chapters like these which make books like this a little bit more apologistic. Rule 7 is work as hard as you possibly can on one thing and see what happens. This rule describes the crucial relationship between disciplined striving in a single direction, forging the individual character capable of showing resilience in the face of adversity. I'd like to point out that 12 rules I just found it a little bit too religious. Okay, I mean, like, so many of the examples he gave were just very biblical for my taste. And I was like, especially toward the end, I was kind of just like, why isn't this book called like 12 Christian Rules for Life? I feel like that would make a lot more sense. And I gave it what I'd call on this channel the religiosity scale. I gave that book a 10 out of 10, which is nuts. I've only ran into another book like that, which I'd probably give 11 out of 10. It was Anxious for What? Anxious for Life by Max Lucado. But with chapters like this rule, I give this book maybe like a 3. Maybe a light 4. Rule 8 is try to make one room in your house. Just one room. Just one room. It's so simple. It could all be so simple. You just need one room. As beautiful as possible. This rule focuses on the vital importance of experience as a guide to what is true and good and sustaining in the human experience. This I didn't initially understand. I mean, it's super common to just clean your room, John.
Make your bed in the morning, every morning, and you will change the world, Sally.
It only takes one small act of tidying up your bed before you tidy up your life, Jimmy.
A lot of this chapter kind of surprised me because it talked about like paintings and art and what artists do, whether they or we know it or not. YouTubers are artists, right? We are artists. We're a lot of things. My favorite part of this rule was when he talked about like his experience with his wife, and they were like renovating the house, and like what paintings they chose to put on the walls, and like what they meant to him and her. Rule 9 is if old memories upset you, write them down carefully and completely. This rule makes the case that past experience whose recall remains latent with pain and fear, it can be stripped of their hardship by voluntary and verbal exploration and reconsideration. I'm just gonna say this. The one story about his client, the gay one who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and his parents were very religious, and his ex-boyfriend from 4 years prior had assaulted him. That story is the hardest swing I could give you in support of the opinion that this book is really not that one-sided. And I really want to stress that because as an author and social media personality, Peterson is known for his more conservative content and perspective. So for anyone who, if that clouds your ability to listen and be like, you know what, I get this, I feel that, I understand, and I agree. I don't know, I was floored by that story. Rule 10 is plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. This rule highlights the importance of explicit negotiation to maintenance of the goodwill, mutual regard, and heartfelt with cooperation without which no true romance can be sustained. Here's one part that stood out from the bedrock section of this chapter. It almost sounds like something you'd hear in a Brené Brown book. To trust is to invite the best in your partner to manifest itself with yourself and your freely given trust as the enhancement. This is risky business, but the alternative is the impossibility of true intimacy and the sacrifice of what could have been two minds in dialogue working in tandem to address the difficult problems of life for a single mind striving in solitude. Rule 11 is do not allow yourself to become resentful, deceitful, or arrogant. This rule describes the world of human experience in a manner that explains what motivated 3 common but surely dangerous patterns of psychological response, delineates the catastrophic consequences of falling prey to any or all of them, and of course lays out an alternative route. If this rule and the next one are not obvious, what is obvious is that the author, he really wants to bring them to the forefront of your understanding. By the way, these are also more religious chapters, but again, I just didn't see them as preachy as 12 Rules for Life. It's hard to pinpoint why though. But in chapter 12, when Peterson wrote about like the Mephistophelian spirit, it kind of reminded me of Napoleon Hill's description of the 7 basic evil, or the devil's workshop as he called it, in the latter half of Think and Grow Rich. Rule 12 is be grateful in spite of your suffering. Yes. This rule makes the case that thankfulness in the face of the inevitable tragedies of life should be regarded as a primary manifestation of the admirable courage required to keep marching uphill. Overall, it's kind of a tough act to follow compared to most self-help books I would review on this channel, but I liked it a lot more than 12 Rules. I found it more accessible and comprehensive. The stories are much more varied, and I feel like what he was trying to accomplish with that, he was able to do with a lot more versatility, and I think he just did a really smooth job in comparison to 12 rules. And with the goal of saying, well, there's something much deeper happening here than what's going on behind these stories, and they all have something in common. In fact, 12 things, and I think that variety did them a lot of justice. I'm just glad I gave this guy's work a second chance, but I am still, nonetheless, very excited for the next book he's gonna put out. Quotes: "We compete for attention personally, socially, and economically. No currency has a value that exceeds it. Much of what is great starts out small, ignorant, and stupid. Life is what repeats, and it's worth getting what repeats right. If you must cut off a cat's tail, don't do it 2 inches at a time." Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who loves to think about and make sense of the world around him or her, especially anyone who practices Christianity. But if not, I wouldn't totally rule it out. Direction 2. If you like this book, if you really, really like this book, I would give 12 Rules a spin. You might enjoy what you read or hear, you never know. For something a lot more basic, but still like very accessible, you might also like Everything Is by Mark Manson. And some of Rule 12 in this book reminded me a little bit of Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Beyond Order by Jordan Peterson. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If you guys buy anything through the links in the description, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please, please, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. This is going to be like a 15, 16 maybe minute video. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.